Hi everyone, I'm Jeff Green, and welcome to Crash Course News. Today, we'll explore the evolution of news in American history. So, what exactly is news? Well, news is newly received or noteworthy information, especially about recent or important events. There's news all around us today, and it's been around for centuries. Throughout history, people have heard about news through communication, newspapers, and television. The news and its profound impact in America has vastly evolved over time. In events such as the Zenger trial, Great Moon hoax, Watergate scandal, and modern media today, news has played a significant role in society. It's how we keep up with the world around us today. With that being said, let's talk about what's really pressing our country. Let's start off with the Zenger trial of 1735. This was when England still controlled the American colonies during the period of solitary neglect. So, one of the colonies that you may not know of or never heard of before, New York, had a guy named Cosby. No, Dan, not that Cosby. That's another trial. I meant New York Royal Governor William S. Cosby. Look at that hair. He was accused for corruption in an article published by John Peter Zenger in a New York Weekly Journal. Zenger was accused of seditious libel. Since Zenger never said that he did not publish the article, the verdict, of course, was going to be in the favor of Cosby. But, all of a sudden, like a flying squirrel, Hamilton, not that Hamilton, swooped in and came to the defense of Zenger. Hamilton said something along the lines of, "It's not libel if it's the truth." After that, the jury stated the verdict of not guilty. The Zenger case stands as a landmark case that set the precedent for a liberty that is necessary in a world of democracy. Freedom of speech. Thanks to the Zenger case, freedom of the press was protected. And this is important to note for future events down the line, such as the Watergate scandal, the protests of the Vietnam War, and of course the right for me to say that pigs can fly.
And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm...
Oh, it's time for a mystery document? The rules here are simple. If I'm wrong about the event, I get shocked by electricity. If I'm right, I get shocked by my own knowledge. Mystery document? Let's see. Having witnessed the completion of this great lens and its safe transportation to the metropolis, his next care was the construction of a suitable microscope and of the mechanical framework for the horizontal and vertical action of the whole. His plans in every branch of his undertaking having been intensely studied, even to their minutest details, were easily and rapidly executed. He waited only the appointed period at which he was to convey his magnificent apparatus to its destination. I don't know. Robber barons? No? What was it? Great Moon hoax? What the? God! Now, we enter a weird part of news history, topped off by the Great Moon hoax. The Great Moon hoax was a series of 6 articles that were published in 1835 in the New York Sun newspaper, written by a guy named John Herschel. The New York Sun was one of those new penny papers, newspapers that appealed to a wider audience by selling them for a cheaper price. Herschel wrote that his colleague, an astronomer named Dr. Andrew Grant, had discovered life on the moon. He said how through his powerful telescope, he could see animals similar to buffaloes, beavers, and bats. What's next? Unicorns? Oh wait, he did write that. He made it seem all too real by describing the moon's geography, massive craters, rushing rivers, and vegetation. However, it was all fake. There was no astronaut named Dr. Andrew Grant, no author named John Herschel. It's been said to be some other guy named Richard Adams Locke. The articles were all satire. They were meant to poke fun at earlier serious extraterrestrial speculations during the time. It's not like the news will ever lose its credibility, right? Nevertheless, the Great Moon hoax was one of several examples in news history where Americans believed in everything they heard on the news. and one of the first articles to reach to a wider audience. In the 1830s, there was a large movement in America, especially in the North. This movement was a movement against the practice of slavery in the South. This was the abolitionist movement.
So what does this have to do with news? The abolitionists used media outlets heavily to present their position against the practice of slavery.
For example, William Lord Garrison, a prominent writer for abolitionism, advocated the term immediate emancipation, whereas many others sought for gradual emancipation. He created a liberating newspaper to declare his radical views.
In one of his famous quotes, he was quoted to say, "On this subject, I do not wish to think, or to speak, or write with moderation. No, I am in earnest. I will not equivocate. I will not excuse. I will not retreat a single inch, and I will be heard." Something like that.
The abolitionism movement is important in how it was centered upon the idea of fighting off slavery in America. But the way that they used the media to spread information about their positions and goals on the topic of slavery was significant because it was one of the first times the news/media was used in this manner. And now, we transition to a period of yellow journalism, an important part of history for the news. It's relevant because we still see this style of media today. I'm looking at you, modern magazines. Joseph Pulitzer started the style using sensationalism and over-exaggeration to create eye-catching headlines and to sell papers for his New York World. His rival, William Hearst, copied his technique with his own newspaper. It was called the New York Journal, and is notable for reporting of the Cuban affair and the USS Maine crisis.
This yellow journalism swept the nation, and it was a major factor for the instigation of war against Spain in 1898.
The reason why we are discussing yellow journalism now is because it played such a huge role for the evolution of news. This is one of the major shifts from the news of the past to the modern media that we recognize today. In our era, publicized political events, in this case, the event in Cuba and the sinking of the USS Maine, are now being covered and sensationalized, then fed back to the general public. Muckraking, raking the muck, washing the dishes, cleaning your room. What do these terms and phrases all have in common?
They both involved the cleansing of something dirty, and that was what muckraking was all about. Muckraking was a journalism movement which worked to expose social and corporate ills, as well as political corruption. They wanted to inspire change and reform due to these atrocities.
So it makes sense to say that muckraking really blew up during the Progressive era. I mean, the term muckraking was even coined by the Progressive president Teddy Roosevelt. But who were muckrakers? In modern terms, they were investigative journalists.
To name some of these investigative journalists, we had Ida Tarbell, who wrote an expose on the Standard Oil Company, Lincoln Steffens, who wrote on political corruption, and my personal favorite, Upton Sinclair. In his book Titled The Jungle, he wrote about the grotesque meatpacking industry.
It was thanks to him that the Meat Inspection and Food Drugs Act of 1906 was implemented. And I can also thank him for the fact that I can eat at McDonald's every week without worrying about what's in my food. Right? Muckraking even expanded into photography.
The work of Jacob Riis in his images named How the Other Half Lives serves as a fine example of that.
Mr. Green, so what's the importance of muckraking? Well, muckrakers are mostly credited for most of the reforms that rolled in after their work got put out, and muckraking is another example of a time when news in the press was used to tailor to a specific audience and influence their views. And now we move on to the next significant milestone for news and journalism itself. This occurred in 1972. That's right, Ben Affleck was born. Just kidding. We're talking about the Watergate scandal. Aside from the fact that I've just been bugged, let's move on. The Watergate scandal was really the beginning of the end for Richard Nixon. He really was an interesting man. As one of the biggest political scandals in American history, as what began in the Watergate government complex ended in the resignation of Nixon in 1974.
Therefore, I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow. Vice President Ford will be sworn in as president at that hour in this office.
How the Watergate scandal affected the mood of America and news in general are two different things. This alleged burglary into the Watergate Hotel turned into a full-fledged cover-up scheme orchestrated by the chief of the country, Richard Nixon. The entire explanation of what and why the Watergate scandal happened can be saved for another video. For now, let's talk about its role in media. When talking about the Watergate scandal today, many seem to disregard the two reporters who worked tirelessly behind it, Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein.
These two rookie reporters in the Washington Post broke this story through weeks of deliberation and were basically trying to siphon facts and evidence to those involved. Something that really isn't done today.
They used obscure but reliable evidence from a collaborator known as Deep Throat. But his name is actually Mark Felt. In regards to Nixon, these two men never met him, but they still managed to write a whole article and a book revolving all around him. However, what's important about Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein and their role in the Watergate scandal was that they truly demonstrated what it took to be a journalist. News to them was something that was real, worthwhile, true. Compared the substance of news back in the 70s to what we have today, you can see a big distinction between them. News isn't just the people behind it, there's also the people who indulge in it. The thing that really makes the reporting of the Watergate scandal so interesting is that we can now look at it in context and compare it to the state of news and reporting in modern times. Before, news and the press had to be supported with cold, hard facts. But today, all it takes are a couple strokes of a keyboard, pixelated pictures, and a click of a button to get a news story rolling. The Watergate scandal was a monumental event that shocked America. Yet at the same time, it exemplified the apparent golden age of journalism and reporting. Now, we enter the age of news broadcasting for modern media today through television.
Led by a man by the name of Lowell Thomas, he was one of the most famous people who contributed to spreading news in this manner. He was a newscaster, filmmaker, radio presenter, and adventurer.
Thomas is most notably known for working with movie newsreels, which reflects the news of the day in movie theaters, similar to how commercials show up before we watch a movie. So why is Lowell Thomas so important? Basically, he helped invent broadcast journalism. He was the face of national news. He's one of the reasons why we have news reporters today, and BBN. Not only was Lowell Thomas the face of broadcast news in the latter half of the 20th century, but he also established personality-driven journalism. He presented news as if he were daddy, telling his family about the world and beyond. And now, let's move on to our final topic, news today. As we have learned, news has played a significant role throughout American history to this day. We hear about news every day, whether it's through Now This, Facebook, Twitter, or BuzzFeed. And that's why I have two special guests with us today, who will be sharing their story and their take on the importance on news. Now let's go to Jeffrey Plube, who will be interviewing Jonah Peretti, founder and CEO of BuzzFeed. Jeffrey?
Thanks, Jeff. So I'm here with Jonah Peretti.
Hi, it's good to be here today.
So Jonah, what exactly is BuzzFeed?
I founded BuzzFeed back in my viral lab back in November of 2006. It started off as a lab with a small group of people where we'd play with ideas. And from there, BuzzFeed expanded from a website filled with listicles and memes to more investigative journalism covering news around the world. And now BuzzFeed is a website for social news and entertainment through our news reports, articles, and videos.
Interesting. And what do you have to say about news and its importance in society today?
We've been especially invested in BuzzFeed News for about the past 4 years, and we're trying to bring our investigative journalism, foreign coverage, features, and global news. Anyone can hear about or report huge stories, especially through the internet nowadays. And journalism has a larger audience than ever before. But news is good for business, it's good for the world, and it's good for our company culture.
Okay, alright. So, why do you think BuzzFeed has grown to be so popular?
I think BuzzFeed is popular because it's really accessible and it's easy to read. We really try to keep up with modern media and appeal to our future generations. And I think that's why we've become so successful.
Thanks, Jonah, for telling us more about BuzzFeed and with your insightful thoughts, of course. Back to you, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Next, we have Justin Osofsky, Vice President of Global Operations of Facebook. Jeffrey, where you at?
Thanks, Jeff. Justin, when and why did Facebook start incorporating news into their website?
We just recently started Trending Topics in 2014. Trending Topics is a feature found in the top right-hand corner of a desktop, and it is designed to help people discover major events and popular yet meaningful content. It was ultimately meant to surface major conversations happening on Facebook. It's a new and much more useful way to spread the news.
Okay, so how do you choose trending topics?
Trending topics basically arise by algorithms or discoveries of the most popular topics mentioned or hashtagged on Facebook. Our trending topics team then comes together to confirm whether the topic is newsworthy or related to current events locally or globally. Lastly, the list of trending topics is personalized for each Facebook user based on several factors such as the user's location or the importance of the topic.
So, why create trending topics?
We want to share news that we think would be high quality and useful to people around the world, as well as remain an open platform for people of all viewpoints. We're not sharing what the media is covering, but what our 1.6 billion users are talking about.
Okay. So thanks for being here with me today. You're very intelligent and obviously handsome as well. Back at it again with Jeff.
Thanks, Jeffrey. And that ends our segment. And as you can see now, throughout the history of United States history, news and its profound impact on America has evolved over time. There were many events that were covered because of news, and news has really played a significant role in society. It had an effect on the political, social, and intellectual aspects of America. The importance of news is universal. Thanks for watching Crash Course. I will not be seeing you next time. And as we say in my hometown, don't forget to be awesome.